Welcome to UNCAGED, a show that celebrates thought leadership from today's top business leaders. The program provides a voice to amazing executives from around the globe who are shaping the world of business today and mapping the path to the commerce of tomorrow. Today, we're speaking with Jenna Segal. Jenna, how are you?
Hi, I'm great. How are you? It's nice to see you.
It's wonderful to see you, Jenna, and I'm really excited to talk to you about what you're doing at Segal, New York City. Jenna is the founder, CEO, and executive producer of Segal NYC. She's also a Tony Award-winning producer and an app founder. Her company really develops and produces company shows, Broadway shows, off-Broadway shows, film, television, streaming, sports. Wow, lots of stuff. And we'll talk all about all of that stuff. But before we get there, Jenna, tell us a little bit about yourself and your career.
Sure. So I started out in political talk shows in Washington, D.C. I actually just went to my alma mater, GW, where Dana Bash, who was the first woman or first human actually, who ever hired me for a job that wasn't at a bagel store. We had a roundtable discussion at the Elliott School of International Affairs, where I'm on the board. From that, funny enough, I got into reality talk shows in Los Angeles, mostly on the business side of production and handling the money and taking show ideas that people brought and helping them to make those things happen. I think that was really where I learned what the skills for what I do now. But now I generally focus on making sure to have impactful women involved with any company that I'm investing in to help empower them and then to help them get funding or fund them.
I love that. And I mean, tell me a little bit more about that. So you have a development and production company really focused on women,
Yes.
Supporting women, women-led projects, women participated projects. Let me know how that functions.
Sure. So I think people are all motivated by different things, right? And some people are motivated by making money, which is amazing. And I wish that that was generally the thing that most motivated me. But what most motivates me is that to make money, but also to see that there is real change occurring based on the things that I'm making money at. And the first real chance that I got to realize that was actually through theater because I was doing it independently. And what I recognized was there was a dearth of women that were either directing or writing shows for Broadway. And once I recognized that there was a real impact that I could make in the market by investing in shows, either when people came to me and said, I'm looking for an investment, and I would say, do you have a writer or a director that is a woman, given the fact that 80% at the time of butts in seats of theater goers in Broadway theaters were women. That was buying the tickets. Hamilton, I think, has evened that a little bit. So now it's like more to 70%. But at the end of the day, women are still the primary ticket buyers with a very high end purchase. So once I identified that that was considerably a market and that women's purchasing power clearly was something that could be reckoned with and should be focused on, I said, okay, well, why are some things doing better than others? And ultimately being able to target that if something is primarily being purchased by women, having women actually driving some of the management decisions is probably a wise idea. That is really what I led with, and basically for the last decade have exclusively focused on whether it is in theater or my investment in Angel City FC, which is the football club soccer American in Los Angeles. Also new investment that I just did in Yola, which is a mezcal company, also out of Los Angeles, but all done out of a farm in Mexico where the women are that are living in the area are producing the agave and producing the mezcal. and I'm really looking more and more towards that. What are the things, I think tequila, agave, it's one of those things that women are finding has a lot less calories, men as well, but the market of who's drinking it definitely is resonating with women. And so needless to say, like, good place to focus.
Yeah, I loved it. And, Jenna, before we started, you talked a little bit about perhaps your process that you go through when you're vetting opportunities, assessing whether something's good or worth pursuing. Tell me a little bit about your methodology.
Sure. So the first thing that I'm looking for is impact. And before I even think about, is this going to make money? I think, what is the impact that this is going to make on women and change for women? And is that impact big enough that it is worth my, as someone once told me, time, talent, and treasure?
Right.
Then I like to work with whoever the founder is, the writer is, the director is, or the producer that is helping to enable those women or men. So my goal is for parity. It is not for solely only supporting women. I like teams, and as long as one of the principal members of the team is a woman, then it qualifies for this feeling of empowerment because there is a woman at the table. And then finally, if I feel that the first two are checked off and I feel comfortable with them, then I look to invest, and I look to gather other people to invest as well.
That's great. So Jenna, your group's been doing a lot of amazing work, and certainly there's been a move, I think, generally in the market to try to get more and more parity, more and more activities led by women, supported, funded properly as they should be. Where do you think we are right now? I mean, are we headed into a better place, or are you optimistic, pessimistic, neutral? What's the status?
I would say I was getting optimistic, and I think I'm getting a little more neutral. I think that I would like to see more and more women come join me and make this a priority for them in their investing. And I'd like to see men. One of those people who doesn't have a problem saying, like, if you have a daughter, if you have a wife, like, you should be in this too, because it is clear that thinking this way is really what's going to change the world of women being able to take those next leaps, whether it's in, childcare, whether it's in being able to work in this, remote hybrid world, figuring out how people work differently, but how to really, look at the world and saying, like, this isn't anymore about just how we're going to have women get involved in the workforce. Women are in the workforce. Yeah. And so we just can't deviate from that as a society anymore. So how can we do better and start setting it up where you actually have people at the table who are making decisions, understanding the differences of things that women are facing.
Right. Sounds like a balance of voice, balance of power, basically, really kind of, trying to get that sorted out. That's great.
Look, well, let me change. I'm only asking if, as long as there's one voice at the table who's willing to speak up and be like, no, that doesn't really sound right. Like, I'm willing to settle for that at this point, but we can always do better.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And it's funny. I really think that as an entrepreneur, you have to be very purposeful about this, because you can make mistakes on things like hiring without even being conscious of it. You know, I think that when we started the business, we found our first 10 people. I think 9 of them were men. 1 was a woman. And there was a moment where I looked out across the room and I went, oh, this is a bit of a boys club. Like, this is too much. And then the next 10 hires were all women. And in fact, actually the next 20 hires were all women. And then it was like, whoa, wait a minute.
So I think that is so valuable that you saw that. And one of the things that has been really interesting over the last couple of years, you had said in the beginning of our interview, my first reaction to COVID and kind of going into quarantine with two things. And one was, what am I going to do with my kids? And two was, what are all these dancers going to do who aren't going to be working on Broadway? And I started a Facebook online group that kind of took off. It like went like wildfire, called Get In Shape Grrrl Broadway. And it was different dancers would come on. We'd pay them to do a live class on the Facebook page, and everybody was getting on, and it was promoting the shows that, you know, were currently paused. It was promoting the dancers, you know, et cetera. And through that, I really started getting much more involved in analytics, and wound up, because I clearly need things to do. I wound up going to Harvard for their business analytics program.
Cool.
And through that, really have learned when it comes to hiring, I think it's incredibly important, whether it's nonprofit, whether it's for profit, the process of analyzing exactly what those feelings are that you're identifying with, and being able to quantify those for hiring purposes, to say, okay, is this somebody that I just would love to hang out with, or and I feel comfortable at a table with, versus like, is this person actually qualified for the job that I need them to do? When you start to see that on paper, and you have a much more, you know, night and day clear understanding of what what you're hiring for, it makes it easier for everybody at the table to kind of focus on what you really need, as opposed to who you want to, like, who you feel most comfortable with. And then it changes the culture.
I mean, that's a great learning for sure. But Jenna, tell me about this year, 2022. I mean, I hope we're getting to a place where we don't have as many restrictions. Based on my recent airline travel, feels like people think everything's back to normal. I don't know if it is, but people seem to think it is. And what's your hope for 2022?
Well, I think that my greatest hope is that we all just come to live with what this new world is, and that this is going to be around for a while, and we just learn to adjust to it and stop battling each other over things that are kind of silly for our country, the United States in particular, so that we can focus on the real important things that we need to do, both for us and for, especially, this sounds so lame, but for our kids, because I often talk about, as I said, I have 3 kids. I feel like for these kids to have the 2 years of your life, if you're only, you know, 11 years old, and 2 of them spent, you know, in quarantine, and now we're all kind of like, all right, we're all moving on from this. Like, for them, that's like a move, you know, it's like going to a new country, a new place. It's a whole different world, a whole different culture. And so I think it would be great to re-understand what the rules are of society, and all be on board with that together. I hope that for the general population, that there is the idea of, you know, we're all in this together, so let's support each other. And I think from a work status place, that we start saying, okay, well, let's start looking a little bit closer at the individual who is capable of hybrid work, who isn't, and really start, you know, looking at ourselves internally as well, and saying, you know what, I'm a better worker at the office. I'm more valuable. I get more accomplished. I'm more disciplined. Or it really doesn't matter for me. If I come into the office 2 days a week, I can still get as much done. I think it just depends on the human, and we've got to do a better job of recognizing the individual in the culture of the workforce.
Yeah, I'm fascinated to see how this whole thing is going to play out. You know, I find in my own little world that there was such a demand for a virtual structure, then a hybrid structure. And then there has been, interestingly, and maybe you found the same, but with younger people, they've actually craved the office experience, because they feel somehow, probably like your kids do, that they've missed out on that connection that you have when you're with others, right? And so it's a really fascinating thing to try to strive to provide that flexibility and come up with new models. I certainly don't know if we haven't cracked it yet.
No, I mean, I say this as a joke, I swear, but I often say, you know, we all have to go back to smoking, because when I was at MTV, before smoking became, you know, completely taboo thing, that was the water cooler. You know, people would go outside. They would connect with people by saying, hey, you know, come sit, have a cigarette with me, whatever. We don't have that thing anymore. And when you even eliminate the water cooler culture because people aren't coming in, where do people get together to help connect? There is, at the end of the day, we are still humans. And as much as I'm saying, you know, there is a great utilization for technology, I think we have to really figure out, okay, what piece is what can be accomplished through technology and what piece really needs the human connection.
Yeah, I love that. Well, on that note, Jenna, it's been great talking to you. We've been speaking with Jenna Segal. She's a founder and president of Segal NYC, which is a company that develops and produces theater on Broadway and off Broadway, as well as films, television, and internet content. Also making investments in businesses that focus on women or involve women in an empowered manner. So
we do a lot.
I mean, Jenna, you are busy in 2022 for sure. And it's wonderful to talk to you. Great to have you on Uncaged. If someone wanted to reach you, where's the best place to find you?
So probably through the website, which is segalnyc.com. And there is an info page to connect with me. And we're also on social on Instagram and LinkedIn and all your regular places.
Awesome. Well, listen, thanks so much for being on the show, and we look forward to having you back.
Thanks so much. Nice.
All right. Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.